Comes Next with your host, Jackie Doucette. Today, I'm really thrilled to be joined by Gretchen Barker. Gretchen is happily retired, but before she got to this blissful stage of life, she had hopes of helping people better themselves. She started college to become a teacher, and she was quickly disappointed that her classes were more about how to make a pretty bulletin board than about how to help people learn and retain information. So she switched tracks. She earned a master's degree in clinical psychology. And while managing a residential treatment center for former mental patients, she watched as some lawyers eventually made a real mess of that organization. And she decided maybe she should go to law school. So after doing that and spending a decade or so as a prosecutor, she moved across the country where she discovered she was ridiculously unhappy with the relationship between law enforcement in that location and the prosecutors. And she decided to open her own practice where she started working mostly with divorce clients. And she helped them sort out the fallout from their previous lives and how and start a fresh life with hopefully better outcomes, better experiences. And now she shares that knowledge with people in a Facebook group about retirement. And that's where I found Gretchen, because she was giving all kinds of wisdom to people looking for answers to all sorts of questions. So Gretchen, thanks for joining me today.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am fantastic, thank you. How are you?
I am happily retired and just living the life.
That's all we can hope for. That's all we can dream of doing, I think.
Yeah. We were talking a bit ago about technology. I almost missed it because I couldn't find things. I had so many things cluttering up my feed. I couldn't find the link to this. And it's funny because we act once we reach a certain age, we act like we're really stupid about technology, and then our kids know everything. That's so not true.
I agree.
Computers were born when we were born, right? And we've watched the life before and the life after, and we know what they can do and we know what they can't do. We know what non-technological things can do to enhance our lives. And we've lived a life that has had both computers and not computers. And we know how to program the timer on our microwave oven.
And how to set the record button, even though we don't really need to do that anymore.
Exactly. And we don't, we know that we need to not give out our passwords to everybody and switch passwords up and stuff. One of the things that older people get into trouble with is this thing where we trust ourselves to evaluate a situation, and then we jump in, and that happens that we end up getting ourselves stuck, like with the password situation, everybody running around playing all these games that all their friends post. What's your first pet's name? And what's the name of the street you grew up on? And do you remember your first phone number? It's cute. All high school friends all gathering together and reminding each other of the name of the high school mascot. But these are such common security questions for getting your passwords changed. And it's not that we are stupid and don't realize this if somebody says it to us. It's just that we have so many things in our heads, as opposed to the kids who will just click, 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 click randomly. They don't really know what they're looking for. So they find random stuff that we never heard about, and it sounds magical to us. That they somehow know all this stuff about these programs and apps that we don't know about, but we know what we're looking for and get frustrated when we can't find what we're looking for.
It sounds like you've been tapping into my life.
But isn't it true that we act like somehow the kids are all smart and we're all stupid?
Yep. And I did that. I went in and I was busy messaging my girls, trying to figure out how to sync my phone and my iTunes on my computer, and nothing would work. I couldn't make them talk to each other properly. But as it turns out, it wasn't just me. So that made me feel a little bit better.
Oh, good. Well, what happens is the kids, if you've ever seen one of the youngsters who's grown up with computers in their hands, right? They just randomly tap stuff. This is how they find out how stuff works.
Yep.
We don't have the time or the patience, and we probably shouldn't have enough time that a 5-year-old has that they take a music app and just tap, 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 and just, hours of tapping and listening to different things and maybe watching stupid cat videos go, ah. They can learn how to use TikTok. That's fine. Or TikTok, Twitter. There's a couple of things that I think have almost no practical positive value to the world other than a little amusement. When Twitter first came out, I thought it made sense if you were going to do what I used to do, which was email all your friends and tell them where the happy hour was on Friday after work, right?
Yep.
We're all getting together at Eli's,
Yep.
See you at 5:15. If you can't get out of work by 5, we'll see you at 5:45, because of how long it would take them to drive. But that the application of Twitter to informing people of where you are at a specific time and show up, be there, made total sense. The applications of Twitter, as some of my friends did, which is taking photos. I had one friend who took photos of his television showing the weather report. Basically, I think his intention was to brag to friends back in Ohio about how great the weather was where he had relocated to. But it just ended up looking like, okay, well, why? That's kind of... Why did I need this to cross my feed? I really quickly stopped paying attention.
Following that.
And then the next thing you know is, oh, don't you know Twitter? Everybody knows Twitter. Well, I have a stupid Twitter account. I just never put anything on it. I happen to not have rethought the whole idea of blasting out there to the entire world that I'm not going to be in my house during
at whatever
Friday,
period
at happy hour.
Yeah.
But there's and maybe part of that is the prosecutor in me. I spent too much time watching people be victimized by stuff like that. But we know, we've lived a life that has experienced that. We know people who have been robbed while they were at a big party or on vacation. We know this. We've lived through it. So we don't have to know that it happens. We just have to not let our kids convince us that, for example, Facebook is such a great thing to put everything on, that we leave ourselves open to posting, hey, I'll be away for 3 weeks. Why don't you come and burglarize my house while I'm gone?
Maybe post those pictures when you get back. What a great time I had. Yeah,
exactly.
As opposed to while you're there.
But so much of our lives is lived online these days, and so much of our kids' lives is lived online. It's have you noticed friends who didn't ever get like a Facebook account and kind of drop off the radar? It's terrifying. I know they still have a life, but it feels like I haven't heard from them in forever, and I never see them.
I figure that those people don't exist, because I use Facebook to try to find all of my classmates for high school reunions and things like that. And if you don't have a Facebook account, you just aren't part of the world anymore. That's just the way it looks.
Isn't that the way it feels? And I'm sure that they don't feel that they don't do anything, that they're not part of the world. I'm sure they're like living their life, and who knows, they may be climbing the Himalayas and
exactly
and having the most amazing experiences. They might be like, a Forrest Gump, you know,
they're not
meeting
sucked down the rabbit
everybody.
hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're busily typing to see little cats that go,
Yep.
you know, we're all excited about getting together and telling everybody what our name of our first pet was.
Yep.
And they're kind of out living. So maybe
Maybe
I'm
there's a
not going to
cue.
get rid of my Facebook account just yet, but
So one of the things that I read in the Facebook group was a comment that you made about having seen that a lot of people in later years are living with their partner, their significant other, rather than getting married to them once they've had a divorce or a death. And it got me thinking about how life can change for us as we retire and as we go through the years, because the only thing that, you know, people want to do is have a life to share with somebody. And they figure that, you know, why do I need to be married? I did all that. I don't need to anymore. I can just live with this person and that will be great. But there are a lot of consequences to just living with someone that that we don't think about as we get older, that we probably should be thinking about.
From the point of view of my legal experience, a lot of people, you know, there's a reason that the gays and lesbians have fought so hard for the right to be married. And it's not just about being allowed to officially have a great big party at the beginning of it all. It's a lot of it is about the partnership of the financial partnership and the government partnership. The partnership that the government recognizes that you will have somebody who is on your list of the next of kin who will be called in to help make decisions when you're sick or dying. You'll be the person who automatically, by default, in many situations, inherits each other's property without. So you'll be taken care of once this is done. I once had to advise a woman who had spent 30 years with her loved one, believing that she was what we call common law marriage here in the States.
Yep.
But common law marriage wasn't a thing in the state that her partner died in.
Oh, no.
And she had built this house with him and lived with him in this house and home. And his children, who hadn't spoken to him in decades since before she met him, showed up and laid claim to the home as his only heirs and locked it and locked her out. And she called wanting to know what to do about it. And unfortunately, there was very little could be done about it at that point. And I use that situation as an example. It is unfortunately not the only, that woman that I'm thinking about with the 30 years, and that's unfortunately not the only one that I dealt with that had very similar situations. People who weren't allowed into their loved one's hospital room at the end of life. People who lost their health insurance because the working partner, not having yet achieved Medicare age, the partner who was working and providing the insurance was dead now. And COBRA wasn't going to provide. Now, I think some things have changed as far as that goes, that you can name a partner and stuff.
That's what I was going to say. You can write a will or put a power of attorney in place, and it doesn't have to be a blood relative. So there are ways to get around it, but there are things that you have to think of.
Exactly. And so if you want to choose not to get married to the person that you're partnered with, you need to go to an attorney to find out what is the proper, in your area of the world, legal way to make sure you're protecting each other financially, protecting yourself, from being left alone with nobody to allowed to pick up the ashes once you're cremated, you know. I mean, and different countries have different views of that. So you decide you're going to go off and move to Timbuktu in your lovely retirement years with your partner, you better double check and make sure what Timbuktu's rules are as far as even cohabitating in some places that we don't know what their rules are. So it's well worth getting the advice to figure out how to take care of each other and take care of yourself. So, and there's a lot
always something new.
Yeah,
always something to think of.
In the US, there's a lot of documents available. If you go to a lawyer to ask for the will, you will usually get what's called a will package that also has a power of attorney, living will, and healthcare power of attorney. Now, these are sometimes combined and they're sometimes different. And sometimes you want the same person as all your powers of attorney. Sometimes you want a different person. In fact, all older adults should start thinking about this. All younger adults should start thinking about it too. But who among your friends and relatives who is going to be bereaved or grieving or approaching grief at the moment that you are on your deathbed is going to be the one who's best capable of making sure your mortgage is paid so that your house doesn't go into foreclosure while you're in the emergency room? And which of them is best capable of deciding what assisted living facility the doctor should discharge you to once you have gotten well enough to get back to some semblance of out of the hospital? Which one is going to be making the decision to pull the plug when the time is right to do that? Sometimes they're not the same person.
Yeah.
And so we need to think about this. There's actually even some groups of people. I guess the best way of saying is ethnic groups of people whose traditions are that talking about those things, those kinds of plans, is an insult to them. So, yeah, better to refer somebody to a lawyer to sort that out than to try to tell them, how dare you not have this? Because it might be that their
upbringing,
that the concept of preparing for their own sickness and death is insulting in their traditions. So to be culturally sensitive, just refer them to the official local lawyer type people who can handle.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So you've probably, in your time as a moderator in the Facebook groups on retirement, seen a lot of different questions. And I know you're not, a guru or a specialist in retirement. You're just a retired person like, hundreds of thousands of other people. But what do you think is the biggest question that people ask? What are they worried about the most in getting ready to retire?
So I think probably the first concern is finances. Next is, what are they going to do and how are they going to derive their self-worth?
Right.
They run a close 1 and 2. But the finances, once you figure out the 4% rule, if you are a saver and a planner, then learning how to make decisions so that you aren't overspending requires understanding the 4% rule. Basically, someone some long time ago figured out that if you spend 4% of everything of your, I want to say net worth, but let's talk about your accounts, your savings accounts, your life savings. meaning any retirement accounts you have and all of that. If you spend 4% of that per year, you can make it through a good 30-year retirement without ever running out of money. So, yeah. So if you think of what you have, and this is on top, that 4% is just how much you spend of your savings. So you're trying to figure out how to turn it around from saving to spending.
Okay.
If you religiously follow this 4% rule, you pretty much know you're not going to run out of money. And the 1% or the 2% of the time when the financial planners projections, when you go to a retirement planner or a financial planner, they'll put your numbers into a computer and your proposed budget, what you would like to spend on your vacations and hobby equipment and stuff. And they'll tell you whether you'll succeed or whether you'll fail. And I'm putting quotes around fail because that's an important quote. It's a term that doesn't necessarily mean what people think it means. Failure in these projections means that you will likely have to reduce your budget before so that you don't run out.
Yeah, or find an income.
It doesn't mean that at age 92, you're going to be declaring bankruptcy. It means that at age 85, when you see that you're spending more than you should be, when your assets are going lower than they should be at age 85, you look at that and you say, gee, maybe I shouldn't spend $5,000 on overpriced coffee from a very popular chain store this year. Maybe that $5,000 should stay in my savings and I'll just make my own coffee and buy the syrups from Bed Bath & Beyond or something. So once that means that the people who are the saver types generally tend to adjust. And if you go to your financial planner and work out a plan that says you only have a 5% chance of failure, it means that you're probably not going to have a failure. It means that unless you go bananas and start giving away money to some catfish scam online, unless you go really crazy and stop following your rules of not lending money to people, you'll probably not have to worry about that 5% failure rate. The other issue are people who failed to think about money and failed to save.
I was going to say that it's hard to spend less than 4% of your savings if you have no savings to begin with.
There you go. That's the other thing is people who arrive at retirement somehow thinking that everything's going to be taken care of for them, that Social Security or pensions are going to replace their income. And it never does. It was kind of meant, they were kind of meant as a subsistence level.
Yeah.
And in some cases, pensions were intended to add a little cushion above the subsistence that you get from Social Security. In other cases, pensions were negotiated to totally replace Social Security in the US. I don't know how it works in other countries, but I do know that the idea that you can just like work, spend, play, because, I have it today, I might not have it tomorrow, have fun while I'm making hay or whatever. Then you get to a year when you finally say, I'm so sick of my boss, I need to quit. And gosh darn it, why doesn't Social Security kick in till age 62? Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to trudge through these last 2 years until I get there. And it's horrible. And then at age 62, they find out they're going to have to live on $1,000 a month for the rest of their life. It's like, no, I can't. Well,
Yeah, it's not something new.
I know. And those of us who planned aren't going to be lending it to them, aren't going to be. And the best we can do sometimes is not invite them out to the overpriced cup of coffee at the nationally known coffee shop, right? The
That's
best
exactly.
we can do is ask them to come over for coffee at our house and have a couple hours long conversation in our kitchens. Hey, the way that people used to do it back when people didn't overspend on things like coffee, right?
Yep.
And bottled water. Bottled water. Who would have thought that people would ever think that putting water in a little plastic bottle would somehow be better than drinking it, and but paying $1 for it would be better than drinking it for basically free out of your faucet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not $1 now. It's $2.50 or $3.50 for that bottle. Exactly.
So, I mean, you'll listen to people like, I don't know, Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman, and they'll say, it's not enough to make little changes. You got to do bigger things. But these little changes
make a big deal.
Yeah, it accumulates. I mean, when you look at your $5 a day coffee budget,
yep,
over the course of the year, that's quite a bit.
Yep.
How much is $5 a day times 365 anyways? Let me figure
a bunch.
Our computers are amazing. We can just sit here while we're talking, and 365 times 5. I should be able to do this. $1,800.
Yeah.
$1,800. Yeah.
Just think what you could do with that. Have a big coffee party at the end of the year.
That would be a big party with a band and and renting out a giant field, maybe a keg or two.
So another thing that I have heard a lot of people say along the lines of, what am I going to do when I retire? I don't want to just sit around, that sort of thing. I read about you.
You read a post I made. Okay.
About the card deck workout. And I guess the card deck workout isn't new because I saw another post that had it as an app. So obviously other people have thought about this, but it was new to me. And I thought, what a great way, especially as you're getting up in age, maybe not as active as you used to be, but some people are. But this card deck workout was kind of cool.
So you have 4 different exercises, things that whatever your abilities are, you find challenging. If it's a deep knee bend, if it's a push-up, my husband does push-ups. So he does push-ups on weird things. Like he'll push up and then he'll hold on. Yeah. But if it's just bouncing a ball, if it's lifting a leg and standing, if it's whatever it is, name 4 exercises. Give each one of them a
suit. A suit.
Thank you. A heart or a spade or a club or a diamond. Name each one of them name. Your push-up is going to be a heart and your jumping jack is going to be a club. Then you shuffle the deck and you pick a card. And whatever it says, if it says ace of clubs, you're going to do 1 push-up. If it says king of clubs, you're going to do 13 push-ups. If it says 5 of diamonds, you're going to do 5 jumping jacks. By the time you finish the workout, you actually had a workout. You gotta actually realize that you're going to have to stop and give yourself some breathing time if you're doing exercises that you're challenging yourself. Now,
yeah,
the older we get, the more it is about just making sure we move and not challenging ourselves, but doing it. And this actually is because one of our jobs that we figured out when we retired during the pandemic is to make sure we stay healthy and work out. And that's one of, you were kind of what I thought you were going towards when you talked about the card deck workout. I thought you were talking, you were about ready to say, you know, I have a number of things that people should think about in terms of what kinds of activities. And I really always kind of count off a whole range of things. Everybody should come up with something they want to do for physical activity, come up with something they want to do for religion, spiritual, moral kind of activity, something they want to do for others, something a charity, something they want to do for art to keep that part of their brain going, their creativity going, something they want to do for intellectual, for whatever that is. For me, it's a church choir, quilt clubs, book clubs, and I go to work out at the gym, and that kind of takes care of all that. In the pandemic, when the pandemic just started and the gym closed, we had to figure out something else to do. And the pool was still too cold, even though we live in Arizona. The pool was still too cold in March to be getting in and working out that way. And so I saw this card deck workout, and I'm like, we're doing this. And I got us into the backyard doing jumping jacks and bounce. Early in the pandemic, you couldn't find hand weights.
Yep.
So but I did find a medicine ball. So we were
cool.
bouncing medicine ball and doing chest presses and laying down, you know. But we did this card deck workout, and it was like, it kept us moving because, you know, the pandemic would have been easy to gain 25 pounds, and the older you are, the harder it is to get rid of.
Yep. It's funny, isn't it, how much harder it is to get rid of than it is to get it on there?
Well, that's true. I've come to a point where I'm happier with being healthy, and I'm not going to start chasing a number on the scale. I'm not going to start throwing Botox. I actually like it when people I can smile with both sides of my mouth. I can raise my eyebrows and all kinds of stuff. I don't if people feel the need to you know, their lips to make them look like my friends did when they used to play trumpet, you know, you get out of trumpet. Now everybody looks like they just gotten out of playing trumpet class, band class. Well, you know, the young folks are trying to say that we need to live a life where looks don't matter, appearances aren't anything. We don't look at a person's attractiveness or their color of their skin or their sexuality, where we shouldn't be judged based on whether or not we're cute. And certainly in the workforce, we should be judged based on whether we're good at our job or not. And then they go and they wear stuff that you would wear if you were doing a pole dance. I mean,
but you're not supposed to judge that. That's how they feel good.
Right. But why do they have to dress in clothes that are intentionally attracting attention in order to feel good? Why do they have to, I mean, to put into their lips and Botox? Why do we have to do all these things to make ourselves feel good if we really are trying to be equal and not sexist society?
I don't think that's a question that can get answered.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think about these things sometimes.
But I do think one of the things that has come out of that question is the idea that as we hit retirement age, we finally reach the point where we are happy with ourselves most of the time, and we can be happy with the way our life is and what we're doing, and we're not trying to please the guy next door or, you know, the people down the street anymore. We're just happy with us.
Lose that last 20 pounds to make ourselves look really cute.
Exactly.
I would wonder if you ever get like a plastic surgeon to talk to, how many people over age 65 are getting procedures versus under age 65.
Yeah.
Because I just feel I'm only 61, but I feel absolutely no pressure to make sure my eyebrows are perfect.
I guess it would depend on whether they were doing it beforehand or not, because I think probably people who have been doing it earlier after they hit 65 continue because they've already got it ingrained in them that they need to look proper.
Yeah. But yeah. I don't want to be that lady who makes it to age 80 and still has like black hair. It just
You want blue hair like all the little old ladies?
Sure. I'll go with blue. I tried to go gray once though and ended up with hag hair. My mom had this lovely white fairy hair and I ended up with this wiry black and white spotted, almost like a skunk stripe hag. It was horrible. I will not do that again for another decade.
For another decade. Try
it again.
Decade.
So I guess I do succumb to some of these principles of beauty, but it's part of that was I couldn't get my comb through that hair. It really was wiry, nasty stuff. I need a little treatment from time to time.
Gretchen, thanks for chatting with me today. I've really enjoyed talking to you. You've made me think about a lot of different things, and I think probably our listeners are thinking a few different thoughts now too.
Right. We do have a half a minute. I did have a conversation with somebody the other day. Not everybody realizes that it's to wait until age 70 for Social Security. A lot of people who are savers think that they'll continue to do whatever they can to get by until age 70 so that then they can get more from Social Security. Double check that. There's something that we call a break-even point, where if you take it early and collect it for the next 8 years, you're missing collecting out a lot of money. So the extra amount you get per month if you wait takes it more than a decade to make up for what you missed out by not collecting early. If you're a saver and a planner, just recognize that you may not find that delaying taking Social Security is the best. Double check that. I had this conversation with a random friend the other day. I didn't realize she hadn't started collecting Social Security. And I explained to her how to calculate the break-even date. She went home and talked to her husband, and she came running up to me the other day. Actually, she yelled my name out across the other side of the pool and came splashing through the pool to me. I did it. I declared to Social Security. I'm going to start collecting this month. Because she had thought that it would be best to wait till 70.
And because you get more then, right?
Yes. So when she calculated how much she would miss out on between now and then, and how long it would take to break even, starting to collect then, it was like a revelation. So I just want to make sure we mention that.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good hint for people.
Yeah. Anyways, nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too.